I'm Saibo Kinchla, the Principal Officer looking after the implementation of the Official Languages Acts across the public sector. So you're very welcome this morning. And I suppose you've got our correspondence over the last week or two around the Act and just updating on the Act. So we'll just kick off with one or two, I suppose, house rules here. So just my own presentation will be recorded, so we can send that on to you afterwards, and you can share that with whichever colleagues, relevant colleagues in your own organisation as well, and we'll share a copy of the slides as well. So just to note that it will be recorded, but there won't be obviously any of your own faces or names to be seen. And if you have any questions as we're going through the session, it won't be my part will only be about 15 minutes, but there's loads of time at the end for questions. So if anything crops up while I'm presenting, or even after, please send them on through the chat function there at the bottom. And I'll look to address these as I can at the end of the presentation, or if there's anything very specific maybe to your own organisation, we can follow up on that by email, or we're open as well to having one-on-one meetings with particular organisations if needs be. So please just flag that with us if needs be. And then again, if any questions come to you after the session, please feel free to email us there. That's our shared email address, ato@tcagsm.gov.ie. So we'll crack on. So apologies if anyone has been at one of my recent information seminars. We did one there during the Public Service Transformation Week. So I'm just going to give a little bit of background that maybe you've seen before if you were in attendance at one of them, but I think it's important just to bring us up to speed on where we are. So I suppose all the work we're doing under the Official Languages Acts is just to move towards, I suppose, a truly or fully bilingual public service. There's a lot has been done and a lot more to do. And I suppose just the Official Languages Acts gave recognition for the first time to the recognition, I suppose, that's given under Bunreacht na Héireann in the Constitution of Ireland to Irish as the first official language of the state. And the Official Languages Acts came then to just, I suppose, give recognition to the rights that citizens have to deal with the state through Irish. So the amended Act, which was amended in 2021, has laid out four, I suppose, different routes of how we might look to improve and increase our level of Irish only and bilingual services. So the first of them, and I'll speak a bit more about this, is the National Plan for Irish Language Public Services. So hopefully you may have seen that this was published there in the last month, and hopefully you've all read all 161 pages of that in both Gaeilge and English. And then there are also other aspects which I won't focus on too much today, but just to mention them. The move from the system of language schemes to the system of language standards, which they have implemented quite successfully over in Wales, for example. And then there's certain duties that will come to the fore through regulations, so public bodies will be prescribed for them. And then there are direct duties. So, for example, the advertising provision that we're probably all fairly familiar with at this stage, or have seen the ads as Gaeilge anyways, if you didn't realise that arose from the Act. So there's a number of different mechanisms through the Act on our journey, I suppose, that we'll be utilising on our journey towards a bilingual public service. So I suppose there's, as I mentioned, a lot done, a lot more to do, and we're certainly still very much at the under construction phase, and we're trying to, there's a lot of good work going on around the place, and we're just trying to tie up all those bits that are going on, and really looking to hone in on what's working, what's not working, and expand on those things that are working. So we're really at a phase, I suppose, in general under the Act to try a lot of new things and not be afraid to try ourselves in the department, but also out in the public bodies as well. So I mentioned the National Plan. The Advisory Committee for the Irish Language Advisory Services Advisory Committee was established under the Act in June of 2022. And this comprises of officials at a senior level from a number of different public bodies, which were identified as providing, I suppose, key services to the public, as well as other aspects related to the Act as well. So you'll see there, for example, there's the LGMA, which represents local government. There's the HSE, the Department of Social Protection. So they're all represented at a senior level, so level AP or higher or equivalent to that. And then we also have representatives of the Irish-speaking community within a Gaeltacht and then outside of the Gaeltacht as well. So there's a good range there on that advisory committee. So the functions of the committee under the Act, I suppose, for the first 2 years, they were really focused on the preparation of this first ever national plan for Irish language public services. And the key element of that, I suppose, under the Act was firstly to identify services that may or may not be provided through Irish or bilingually already, but which should be provided through Irish or bilingually. So that was a key feature of the national plan. And then the other aspect of it is to provide public bodies with strategies by which they might be able to look to provide these services. So I suppose traditionally, maybe with the language schemes, there was maybe a little bit of back and forth with the department in terms of agreeing the language schemes. And then once the commitments were given, the onus was on the public body to implement those language schemes. So obviously there will be a certain amount of ownership on public bodies to implement what they can. But we're really working in a supportive role here in the department and within the committee in terms of looking to guide and help public bodies in how they might go about improving their level of service. So the strategies, I suppose, is also a key part of that national plan. So identifying the services, but then also recommending strategies by which those services might be provided. And the committee in that in the preparation of the national plan were to have particular regard for services provided in Gaeltacht areas, and then for also strong pockets of Irish language speakers elsewhere across the state as well. So just to briefly mention another function of the committee, we don't need to dwell on it too much today, but they are also tasked with offering public bodies with advice around the number, grade and competency level required to provide a service. And this is to be done in conjunction with the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, which is mentioned specifically in the Act. And that really just sets an international standard, I suppose, for what is considered a usable level of Irish. You sometimes see a lot around, fluency in Irish required, but what does that actually translate as? So this sets out a framework, I suppose, to standardise what we're actually talking about there. So, for example, we always love to give the example of the bus driver going back in Connemara. A spoken level in B2 is most likely sufficient in that case. However, perhaps in our own department here at a more senior level, where you're working and writing and speaking in Irish every day at a high level, C1 level might be the level that's required there. So just to give, we don't need to dwell on that, and we'll have other information seminars around those, but just to mention that. And then also the advisory committee had within its remit under the Act to commission research, which it did. At the University of Galway undertook research on behalf of the committee that formed the basis of the national plan, and many of you maybe on the call this morning would have helped us out a lot with that research back in March, and there was a lot of time pressure, and we're very, very grateful for all the information and help that we received and support that we received from the organisations, particularly those officials appointed under Section 4B of the Act, and the Irish language officers as well, but anyone really who helped us. So I suppose some of this, the work we're coming to today, is circling back to certain information that was captured as part of that research through the corporate questionnaires that were disseminated around that time, and we got back many of those completed questionnaires as well. And then as part of that research, there was also a survey carried out on the competence level, which we were delighted that over 35,000 participants from across the public sector partook in that in that survey. So that really gave us a strong foothold, I suppose, for the work that we have to carry out over the coming period. And then also we have our quite ambitious recruitment target of 20% of recruits to the public sector to be competent in Irish by the end of 2030. So that was a key feature of the committee's work, and through the national plan, and looking ahead to the work that we need to carry out under the national plan to achieve that target. So I suppose the national plan was approved by government at the start of the month, and it is set out under 5 key strategic themes, similar, I suppose, to other reformative policy pieces of the government, such as better public services and civil service renewal. And these 5 areas focused on, I suppose, broad initiatives and structural strengthening. Then, the piece around provision of public services through Irish, as I mentioned there. It looks at technology, particularly around the area of AI, which is going to be key to, I suppose, a lot of our work going into the future in terms of interactive services, all of that kind of thing. So ensuring that Irish language is to the fore in terms of technological advancements is crucial and will be very helpful, I think, to us over the coming years, as we have certain targets in government in general around digitisation of services and moving services online. So that presents a great opportunity, we see, for ensuring that Irish language services are embedded from the start of those advancements, and that'll ease a lot of the, I suppose, burden sometimes that can come about in terms of, that face-to-face piece and getting people in seats for that. So we'd say huge opportunities in the technological sphere over the coming years in terms of the work we're trying to do. Then obviously the other key pieces are the training, recruitment and language competence, and then the data collection as well. So we found through the research, I suppose, that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in a way in terms of data collection. There's not a lot of record kept of people coming in with Irish and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of work we can do around that to strengthen, I suppose, and making the best use of resources as people are coming in. So that's all the kind of work we'll be doing under the national plan. So as I mentioned there, it's laid out under 5 major strategic themes. It's research-based, and it's published on the website, on our own website. So we'll be sharing these slides after. So if you haven't had a read, you can click on that link there once you get these slides, and that should bring you straight through to the plan. It's, as mentioned, it's kind of a high-level strategic plan, and then it's to be supported by 2 3-year action plans. The first of these is to be published in the coming months, which will set out more specific, I suppose, targets to achieve the objectives of the major strategic themes. Then. And then moving on, I suppose, to what we're speaking about today, and the Act sets out a specific deadline following the approval of the national plan by government, that the Minister has 3 months to set dates by which all Gaeltacht services and Gaeltacht offices will be provided through Irish. So as mentioned, we kick-started, I suppose, a consultation on this through the research done for the national plan in March, which provided the relevant public bodies with an opportunity to provide information around the services in the office they have located in the Gaeltacht as part of the corporate questionnaire there. And then we're just circling back to those public bodies now that were identified, I suppose, through the research as providing services to the Gaeltacht or having Gaeltacht offices, to, I suppose, just ensure that whatever information provided was, that you're happy with that. If dates haven't been set, that if you can set dates and that kind of thing. So I suppose just come into this piece, and I know there's a lot of text there, so I'm not expecting you to read it all, but it is noted under Section 18E of the Official Languages Act, Amendment Act 2021, and this piece around the Minister setting the dates for the Gaeltacht offices and services. So just a couple of things to note, I suppose, on the Gaeltacht services. So I suppose the office is located in the Gaeltacht in the LPTs. That's a straightforward, I suppose, physical kind of element. And then there's also obviously probably some very obvious services that are provided in Gaeltacht areas that are physically, again, located in Gaeltacht areas. However, you'll note here, that it makes mention of services that are provided to a Gaeltacht area but may not physically be located in a Gaeltacht area. So I suppose just to flesh out what we mean here is we're speaking here about, if you're at home in your house in the Gaeltacht and you want to avail of a service and you're dealing with somebody, so that's either a helpline or a web chat or Obviously, there's the face-to-face element as well. But any kind of national helpline, national web chat function, we will be considering them as providing a service to somebody in the Gaeltacht. So that's quite an important element, I suppose, to factor in when you're looking at these kind of services. And then also just to mention, that there may be certain schemes or programs offered in the Gaeltacht where you might have regular meetings. Your public body might have meetings with the public or the communities in Gaeltacht areas. So again, we'd be looking at that to be covered in services that will be provided to the Gaeltacht. And then the other element, I suppose, is the element of field work. So again, services physically located in the Gaeltacht, but oftentimes we might provide services which may include, we always love to give the example of the postman or woman or the bus driver who's providing a service to the Gaeltacht, may not be necessarily located in one specific area, may travel through a Gaeltacht area to provide those services. So they will be counted under this as well. And then obviously there may be other elements, such as engineers, park rangers, that kind of thing. So they're all the kind of services that we're talking about here. So I suppose just to mention, this is to give you the overview. If you do have any queries around what services, and I'll share again our shared email address at the end, please feel free to come to us to clarify if you're unsure what we're talking about here. But I suppose it's better to over-identify than under-identify, because you'll notice just by what's mentioned here in the Act that once it's basically one date per either public body or a group of public bodies is to be set per language planning area. So that one will be set for the offices and one, you'll note, will be set for all services. So for example, once a date is set, that's a statutory date that has been set. So for example, if you have for whatever reason missed a service that hasn't been identified, the fact that it says all services provided by a public body or a class of public body in a Gaeltacht planning area, it's important that the date is accurately reflects all services that are provided in and to a Gaeltacht area. And just to note, in addition, if you didn't have enough information already, that different dates can be set for different language planning areas. So, for example, for whatever reason, maybe you're perfectly set up in, the Gaeltacht areas in Connemara, but maybe you have a little bit more work to do in, for example, Donegal. They are all things that can be factored in the date setting. So just to know. Apologies, I muted myself there. So just moving on, I suppose just to highlight a couple of them, maybe I've covered there, but when you're looking at the services and the offices and the dates, just a couple of things to mention. Obviously, I mentioned there some or a lot of you maybe have already provided information through the corporate questionnaire. Some of that may have been identifying the services, but perhaps the dates haven't been specified. And then some, maybe haven't fleshed out maybe some of the services that. So just to look back maybe in terms of what was provided through the corporate questionnaire, if that was done. As mentioned there, so it's every office and service provided in and to an LPT. So they're the Gaeltacht areas. And again, when you get these slides, you can click on that link and that'll bring you to a map, I suppose, of where those specific language planning areas are. But generally, any ones that are in a Gaeltacht area should be flagged. And then I suppose I mentioned there just this idea of parity of esteem, so that Irish language services that are being identified, that they're on par at least with the English one. So for example, sometimes people say, oh yeah, well, we do have an Irish language service, but sometimes it's not equivalent to the English one. So for example, an English service you can maybe avail online, whereas an Irish language one, maybe you have to send a hard copy form through the post or whatever. So just if you're looking at those services, if you're saying they are provided through Irish, are they actually being provided at the same level at least as the English ones? So just to mention there. And then also just to be mindful of any commitments given previously in respect of services under language scheme. So, if your public body has a language scheme in place, just to be mindful, I suppose, of commitments given there. I know oftentimes there was maybe commitments around, that meetings held in Gaeltacht areas will be held through Irish or whatever. So just to be mindful of any commitments given there, because we can't go backwards, I suppose, on any previous commitments given. And then the other important part, I suppose, to look at is employment rights. So all of this we want to do with you on a planned basis to set realistic and workable dates with public bodies. So, if you're looking at a particular office, for example, and there's, certain people there who don't have Irish, obviously, I mean, the ideal world is, you'd look to offer upskilling and they might look to upskill, or you can get people in. But we're certainly not implying with any of this that anyone should be pushed out of roles that they're currently in or anything like that. So we just ask you to be mindful about that. For example, if there's somebody in a certain office and they haven't, they've been offered upskilling, they're not interested, that's fine. But for example, they're due to retire in 10 years' time or whatever, they're all things that can be factored into the date setting. So just to be mindful of that. And then the key part, because obviously we're adhering to strict statutory deadlines on this, we just ask that the dates be returned by the 22nd of November 2024. So obviously we sent out the initial communication last week, so we're hoping, I think overall we've given you about 4 weeks to come back on that. Hopefully some of the legwork has been done already through the corporate questionnaire, and it's just a case of maybe honing in on that. But again, by all means, get on to us if you have any queries around that. So this, just to finish off, I suppose many of you maybe are the 4Bs, as we sometimes like to refer to. So the senior officials appointed for the purposes of the Act, or the under 4B. This is the mechanism we've drawn on, I suppose, under the research, and now and I suppose it'll become more and more common to be drawing on this mechanism as we go forward on the work that we're doing under the Act. So we're very grateful, I suppose, to everyone on the call this morning, and we're absolutely available for any questions. If anyone has any particular questions they want to put in the chat, for now, we can certainly look to answer them. Or again, as I mentioned, if there's anything that strikes you after the call that you want to follow up on us, or if you feel like you need to have a one-to-one, by all means, we're available over the coming weeks. If you just get in touch on our shared email address there, and we'll do everything we can to support you to do this, so that we can achieve our goals on a planned and phased basis with